They refused to fund my $50,000 project that would have saved our biggest client, but spent $300,000 on the VP's son's influencer launch. 3 years later that client offered me their new contract, $100 million, and I signed it from my own office across the street. I knew the moment was coming the second I saw that smug little bastard in the snakeskin loafers walk into the meeting with a ring light under one arm and his dad's approval under the other. But it still hit like a sucker punch when the VP looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Thanks for the effort, Marissa, but we're looking for something a little more innovative." Innovative, that was his word, like I hadn't just spent 6 months mapping every choke point in our biggest client's infrastructure. Sable Calm, the one keeping our lights on since before the intern pool started shaving and distilling it into a laser-focused $50,000 plan that could have stabilized their systems, saved their contract, and probably added 3 more years of partnership. I still had the printout of my proposal in my lap when they approved a $300,000 brand initiative for the VP's son, a campaign targeting Gen Z for a B2B security software client with drone footage and neon, $300,000 for something that looked like a rejected Mountain Dew ad and TikTok from someone mid-concussion. I didn't say a word, I just nodded like a good soldier while they handed our future over to a 26-year-old whose last big idea was make the logo 3D so it pops. No joke, he said that in a real meeting and got applause. If you're still here, and you're already seething for me, do me a solid, subscribe and like this story. I promise it gets even worse before it gets better. And hey, it seriously helps the team keep sharing stories they probably shouldn't be telling. Anyway, after the meeting, I went back to my desk, took a long sip of cold coffee, and watched them roll out the campaign deck. They didn't even bother hiding it from me. I guess when you've been publicly dismissed as not disruptive enough, they figure you've got nothing left in you but quiet quitting and budget spreadsheets. I flipped through the VP's son's slide deck out of morbid curiosity. There were literally memes in it. One slide just had a photo of a raccoon in sunglasses and the words "Sable Calm but make it vibes." I wish I were joking. The real cherry on top? I watched from the back of the room while they toasted his bold approach with cupcakes shaped like hashtags. Meanwhile, my pitch, the one with actual data, client feedback, and a 5-year retention projection, sat in the recycle bin of a Slack thread like roadkill. Even had the gall to send out a company-wide newsletter calling it a game-changing pivot to modern relevance. I went home that night and didn't even bother with dinner. Just sat on the couch in my blazer staring at my ceiling fan like it owed me an apology. Because here's the thing, it wasn't just the dismissal. I'd been overlooked before, undercredited, passed over. Every woman in tech knows that drill. But this time, it wasn't just some random opportunity. This was about Sable Calm, the company I'd bled for, the client I'd pulled back from the brink more times than I could count, the reason we had bonuses last year, and they threw my work in the trash for a vanity project with glow sticks. That was the moment I knew I was done begging to be heard. I didn't quit. That's the part they never expect. They think if they humiliate you hard enough, you'll just pack up your little ergonomic keyboard and disappear. But I stayed. I took notes. I watched that dumpster fire burn from the inside out, and I started planning. The break room smelled like scorched popcorn and betrayal when I finally cornered Dana, the one person at Nexera Tech who hadn't yet sold her soul for stock options or a seat at the VP's lunch table. She was microwaving something that looked like sadness in Tupperware when I unloaded. I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, just laid it out. The numbers, the client history, the ridiculousness of betting on the VP's spawn to rescue a 30-year account with a light show and buzzwords. Dana listened in that tired, HR-exhausted way that women who have been through the meat grinder learn to do. She didn't even blink when I said, they just threw away for a 12-week social media stunt. She sighed, shrugged. You've got to pick your battles, Riss. That line hit harder than it should have. Not because she was wrong, but because she was right. Except I'd already picked my battle. I went back to my desk and opened a new Google sheet titled Receipts. I started everything. Dates, emails, Slack messages. I screenshotted the campaign's projected ROI before they pulled it from the dashboard. Spoiler alert, it was negative. As in, hemorrhaging money levels of bad. You'd think they'd try to bury that failure quietly. But no, they spun it in town halls like it was a bold step into youth engagement. Meanwhile, engagement on the actual campaign posts was in the single digits. One video had a comment from a bot that just said nice. That was the highlight. What really sealed the deal though, was when I found the internal marketing note calling the project a risk worth taking for future-facing momentum. Future-facing momentum. For a client whose median stakeholder age was 62 and whose CFO still printed emails. That's when I knew. This wasn't just incompetence, this was arrogance dressed in business casual. So I leaned in. Quietly. I opened LinkedIn and searched for name I hadn't thought about in over a year, Aaron McCraw, former VP of Product Integration at Sable.com. We'd worked together on a nasty rollout back in 19 when their billing API exploded like a dying blender. Erin was tough, smart, and most importantly, she had a long memory for people who showed up when it mattered. I sent her a message. "Hey, Erin, been too long. Would love to grab a coffee sometime. Nothing formal, just catch up." She responded an hour later. "I owe you at least 3 coffees. Next week, no promises, no pitches, just a breadcrumb." Meanwhile, I kept digging through the analytics on the influencer campaign. It was worse than I thought. Bounce rate above 90%, average view time under 4 seconds. One landing page had a typo in the call to action button. "Lear more." Sable.com didn't even comment publicly. They just went quiet, like a patient who stops returning calls before switching doctors. And Nexarotech, they were too busy posting behind-the-scenes photos of the VP's son, riding a Segway in a branded hoodie to notice the silence. At night, I started jotting notes in a leather planner I hadn't touched since grad school. Nothing fancy, just thoughts, concepts, reminders, how to build what they refuse to see, how to fix what they let rot. One sticky note read, "If they won't pay $50,000 to keep a legacy client, what would that client pay to leave?" That was the first splinter. Not rage, not revenge, just a question. But questions, I've learned, are how revolutions start. It was a Tuesday morning when the Sable.com silence broke. Not with a bang, not with some dramatic phone call or press release, just a terse 3-sentence email to business ops. After extensive internal review, Sable.com will not be renewing its partnership with Nexarotech. We appreciate the years of collaboration. Final transition dates are outlined in the attached document. No signature from the CEO, just a digital decapitation via PDF. By noon, the building smelled like panic sweat and old printer toner. The execs scrambled into emergency sinks. There were closed-door huddles and slapdash retention retrospectives scheduled by people who couldn't spell Sable.com 2 months ago. I watched it unfold like a ghost, half present, half invisible. My inbox stayed quiet. No one asked me to contribute. No one even asked if I had insights. I was the woman who'd practically stitched that account together with duct tape and late nights for 5 straight years, and now I was just background noise. They brought in an outside consultant to evaluate client experience gaps. He wore flashy shoes and mispronounced my name in the hallway. I didn't correct him. Instead, I put in my earbuds, opened a spreadsheet I didn't care about, and thought about the client call I had scheduled that night, under a different name, with a different email, on a different laptop. Because while Nexarotech flailed around trying to figure out why their biggest account bailed, I was already halfway out the door, sideways. 2 months earlier, I'd quietly joined a freelancer platform under a pseudonym, Melissa R. Lane. It wasn't subtle, but it was just enough separation to keep it clean. My tagline? B2B system strategist with a track record in legacy client retention. Sound familiar? Small startups started reaching out. Fintech, manufacturing, even a pet insurance firm run by 2 over-caffeinated sisters who sent emails in Comic Sans. I helped each one clean up back-end messes, streamline workflows, and map strategy, all while sitting in Nexarotech meetings pretending to care about KPI dashboards I knew wouldn't matter in a year. The pay was nothing glamorous at first, but it wasn't about money. It was about oxygen. Every night after Nexarotech drained what was left of my dignity, I'd flip open my second laptop, crack my knuckles, and do real work. Work that mattered. Work that someone actually asked for. Sometimes I'd still get internal updates about the VP's son's campaign. They tried spinning the Sable.com loss as a pivot away from legacy dependency. That gem came from a Slack thread full of execs using buzzwords like sunsitting and synergy realignment. Translation? We lit our own house on fire, but look how well it's warming the room. They sent out a motivational email blast titled, "Every exit is an entry somewhere else." I nearly choked on my instant oatmeal. Funny thing is, they were right. Every exit is an entry, just not for them. While Nexarotech started hemorrhaging budget and pulling team leads into reputation triage sessions, I was booking my 10th freelance client. A healthcare compliance startup that reminded me, weirdly, of Sable.com 10 years ago. Clunky, noble, begging to be rescued from its own outdated codebase. I didn't tell anyone. I still wore the Nexarotech badge. Still clocked in at 8:59 a.m. sharp. Still answered every inane Slack thread with a thumbs-up emoji like a good corporate ghost. But something had shifted. I wasn't trying to climb anymore. I wasn't even trying to be seen. I was tunneling out. One invoice at a time. One side deck at a time. One quiet, calculated move after another. Focused attachment. That's what I called it. Not revenge. Not yet. Just distance. Measured in billable hours. I filed the LLC paperwork in my pajamas at 2:17 a.m. with a lukewarm beer in one hand and my laptop balanced on a stack of unopened mail. The name, Omnia Partners. It sounded bigger than it was, which, at the time, was just me, my freelancing alias, a burner Gmail, and a Google Voice number that routed straight to voicemail, so no one could hear the exhaustion in my real voice. I picked the name because it felt like a dare. Omnira. Like omnipresent and era. A silent promise to every suit who ever told me I was too detail-focused or not quite strategic enough that I'd build a new era and they wouldn't even see it coming. I brought in a freelance developer I'd met on a client-side project. His username was D3VGod17, and he refused to speak on Zoom, which was fine by me. We worked through shared Git repos, burner emails, and late-night messages that always started with "you up" and ended with API documentation. Together, we started stitching the old Sable.com proposal into something real. Not just polished, but bulletproof, scalable, cross-industry adaptable. We ran silent pilots with 3 separate clients: a logistics firm, a legal tech startup, and a non-profit that ran on outdated grants and Microsoft Access. Each one had the same problem: bloated systems, poor retention, terrified leadership, and each one saw results within 6 weeks. I kept records of everything: screenshots, reports, client testimonials, case studies. I started building slide decks in Canva at midnight while my cat slept on my arm, and my Nexura Tech laptop sat unopened next to me like a sulking ex. Every email I didn't receive from the Nexura leadership team, every invite I was excluded from, every project I was passed over for, it all became fuel. Oxygen. Proof that they were too blind to recognize gold, unless it was spray-painted on a trust fund baby, with a LinkedIn full of shirtless yacht photos. Meanwhile, the VP's son got a full-page spread in the internal newsletter for visionary engagement practices. It featured a photo of him in a branded bomber jacket, giving a thumbs up next to a whiteboard that literally said, "Make cool stuff and dollar." I forwarded it to Dana with the subject line, "Thought leadership." She replied with a string of skull emojis. But I didn't feel bitter, not anymore. I felt alive, because for the first time in years I wasn't begging for permission. I wasn't waiting for a seat at their table. I was building my own, plank by plank, out of the very tools they discarded. I enrolled in courses, agile systems, behavioral UX, enterprise architecture. I used my vacation days to attend virtual summits under a fake agency badge. I made a new LinkedIn profile that didn't mention Nexera Tech at all, just Omnira, with a vague description that made me sound like a shadowy fixer in a prestige drama. And slowly, connections started forming. Strategic intros. Random DMs from former clients. A late-night Slack ping from a marketing director who said, "Hey, saw your name on a doc for a vendor. Are you doing independent work now?" I never answered directly, just smiled to myself and said, "Let me know what you need." I built a Notion dashboard so big and layered it looked like I was plotting a heist. Because I was. Not for money, not for titles, but for the chance to prove that quiet women who build behind the scenes are more dangerous than 1,000 loud boys with borrowed ideas and corporate jet passes. Omnira was still invisible, but it was growing, and just like mold in a forgotten corner office, it was about to spread. They always circle back when they're desperate. The leadership offsite was held at some overpriced conference center with faux rustic vibes, exposed beams, Edison bulbs, and catered quinoa that tasted like printer paper. It was the kind of place where they hand you a branded notebook at the door and pretend it's investment in employee creativity. I wasn't even supposed to be there, technically, but the director of talent pinged me the night before. "Hey, quick favor, could you run a session tomorrow on strategic structuring? Just walk the new hires through your system. You know, the one you mapped last year for the ops overhaul? You're so good at simplifying the technical." Simplifying the technical. Translation: come teach the children the kingdom you built before we hand them your throne. I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes, then typed back, of course, "Happy to help." Sent it with a smile so fake it could have been on a corporate coffee mug. So the next day, I stood at the front of a room full of eager 25-year-olds with branded thermoses and anxiety disorders and walked them through Marissa's method, a name I did not invent but had grown used to hearing tossed around like an office yoga mat. It was the very framework I'd pitched for $50,000 2 years ago, the one they called uninspired, the one they'd buried while funneling 6 figures into a Gen Z light show. Now they wanted me to serve it on a silver platter to their fresh meat like it was some ancient wisdom from the mountaintop. I didn't flinch. I smiled, clicked through my slides, told stories, wove it into a neat little masterclass, complete with implementation tips and color-coded workflows. I never once mentioned the all-nighters, the canceled weekends, the hours stolen from my lungs while the VP's son live-streamed drone shots of parking lots. When it was over, The director clapped like she'd discovered sliced bread. "See? You have such a knack for this," she beamed. "We should record it next time." "Sure, maybe frame it too." That night I walked past HQ on my way home. Cold wind, empty sidewalks, office lights still flickering from someone else's late-night panic. I crossed the street, stopped a narrow building wedged between a vegan bakery and a vape shop. The for lease sign in the second-floor window had been taunting me for weeks. I pulled out my phone, typed in the number and dialed. By midnight the lease for Sweet Tootsie was signed. 300 square feet, exposed brick, a window that faced Nexera Tech's gleaming lobby. I didn't tell anyone, not yet, but something in me clicked into place. A quiet internal lock snapping shut. No more begging, no more pretending. That same night, while feeding my cat and eating cereal out of the box, I got a notification on my burner phone, the one tied to Omnira. It was from Aaron McCraw, my old Sablecom contact, an encrypted calendar invite, no subject. Time next Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Location TBD, will confirm morning of. Note, bring what you've built. That's all it said. But I read it 10 times. I didn't respond, just sat there in my tiny kitchen, feet curled under me, heart pounding like I was about to jump out of a plane. Because that message wasn't just a meeting, it was a signal. Sablecom was circling, and I had something they wanted. The morning of the meeting, I woke up before the alarm even had the nerve to beep. Cold October light spilled through the window of Sweet Tootsie, catching on the logo I'd tacked above my desk with painter's tape, Omnira Partners. Still just vinyl lettering on foam board, but it looked official in the right light. I'd been sleeping in the office for a week, not out of necessity, out of something deeper, like I couldn't bear to leave the launch pad in case the rocket finally fired. At 9:03 a.m. the email came in, from Aaron. Subject, proposal request, Sablecom body, formal proposal requested by close of week. Bring the full system. Target budget under $100,000. Implementation within 60 days. Non-compete voided. Show us what they ignored. I just stared at the screen for a second, then exhaled so hard my coffee went cold. Sablecom didn't just want a quote, they wanted the thing. The blueprint I'd carved out of bone and burnout, the system I'd pitched for $50,000 and watched get drowned in neon marketing and banana-flavored vape clouds. Now they wanted it, all of it, in black and white. I opened a blank slide deck and titled it the same name I'd given my very first years ago. Legacy Stream 3.0. Stabilization through simplicity. Catchy, not really. Accurate, down to the bone marrow. For the next 48 hours I disappeared. Ate crackers. Slept on a yoga mat. Showered at the gym 2 blocks over. I built the proposal in silence. No Slack threads, no circling back. No brainstorms with people who only showed up for credit. I'd lived inside this idea for so long it felt like therapy, just to write it down properly. A 90-page master proposal, including system maps, cost efficiency projections, and an implementation timeline that made their old partner's version look like duct tape and prayer. And yes, I kept it under $100,000, not because I had to, but because I wanted it to sting when they compared it to the $300,000 influencer campaign that gave them viral embarrassment and a 4% conversion rate. Every section ended with a single line. What was ignored can be refined. What was refined can be owned. I sent it off at 2:14 a.m. No cover letter, no emoji, just the work. Then I closed my laptop and stared out the window at Nexera Tech's empty offices glowing across the street like a haunted fish tank. They had no idea what was coming. By noon the next day Aaron replied, "This is exactly what we needed. You thought ahead in every direction. One note, we'd like to sign somewhere discreet. Suggest a location. Discreet." That word landed like a bell ringing inside my ribcage. Not schedule a call. Not loop in procurement. No committees. No NDA-fueled delays. They were ready. All I had to do was pick the battlefield. I didn't hesitate. I booked a private conference suite in the glass high-rise across from Nexera Tech, top floor, tinted windows, espresso bar in the lobby. Fancy enough to be neutral, close enough to be surgical. I could see their boardroom from the elevator. The irony nearly knocked me over. The night before signing, I stood in the middle of my tiny office with the contract draft printed and clipped neatly in a leather folder, just breathing. Nervous wasn't the word. It was electricity. Pressure. Like I was standing in the eye of a storm I'd been hand-seating for years. No one had handed me this. No one opened a door. I'd built the house brick by bruised brick. And now, the biggest client my former employer ever had was about to walk through my door. The final version of the contract came through with one line in the notes field. Let 'em keep the buzzwords. We'll take the systems. I smiled, closed the file, and looked out the window. Tomorrow I'd walk across the street. And they'd never see me coming. It started with a ping. Nexera Tech's bloated CRM system, overbuilt, undersecured, and as nosy as a church gossip, flagged a Merdata anomaly buried deep in a vendor file. Some junior analyst, probably half caffeinated and 2 weeks into onboarding, spotted my name attached to a back-end implementation spec. Not Marissa Lane, but the alias I'd been using for pilot programs, Mr. Lane. Close enough. Within an hour, the Slack threads lit up, screenshots. Red circled names. Didn't she used to be? Whispers echoing through digital hallways. By 11 o'clock a.m., the VP was in full tailspin. He'd been so smug, so utterly convinced Sablicom's departure had been mutual realignment, that he had noticed they'd gone shopping, and certainly not that they'd walked straight into the arms of the woman he'd ghosted after the boardroom pitch massacre. I imagine the moment like a scene from a procedural drama. Him pacing in his office, tie loosened, yelling into a Bluetooth headset, "Who the hell is Omnira Partners?" No public website. No LinkedIn presence. No press release, just a growing buzz in his gut, telling him someone had played a longer game than he knew existed. Meanwhile, I was in a plush swivel chair on the 19th floor of the Argent building, sipping espresso from a porcelain cup, while the Sablicom CEO reviewed the signature page. Erin sat across from me, cool as ever, her tablet glowing with contract language we both knew was carved from months of mutual trust and silent alignment. We didn't gloat, didn't need to. The real revenge wasn't the money. It was the erasure. The fact that Omnira had ghosted in under their radar, set up camp in their blind spot, and recaptured the crown jewel without a single LinkedIn post. But I wasn't done. At 2:42 p.m., 18 minutes before the Nexera Tech Q4 board meeting, I opened my old work email. Still technically active due to a clerical oversight. Still connected to 3 internal distribution lists. I typed out a short final message to Kira Monroe, one of the few people still there who ever truly had my back. Subject, quick heads up body, "Hey Kira, might want to check the 3 p.m. board packet." Line item under client churn and movement. Should be enlightening. No signature, no flourish. Just the wick, already lit. Then I logged out, deleted the inbox from my phone, and dropped it into my desk drawer like a spent matchstick. Across the street they were gathering now, water bottles lined up, Q4 slides queued, that nervous energy humming through the air that only comes when people are about to realize they've been outplayed. I watched from the window, the same window I used to stare out of when they'd leave me off invites, pass over my ideas, hand my work to interns and influencers, and then ask me to just help clean it up a bit. Honey, how small that building looked now. Like a dollhouse full of people still playing at power, unaware that the foundation had already shifted beneath them. 3 floors below me, the Sablecom exec team posed for a discreet photo. Just the core team and me. No PR rep, no hashtag, no noise. Just legacy reclaimed, in silence. 3 o'clock p.m. sharp. Nexera Tech's boardroom, top floor, sunlight slicing through the tinted glass like a surgeon's scalpel. The Q4 report is printed on premium stock, logo stamped, spiral bound, with tabs color-coded like it's going to save someone's job. Spoiler, it won't. The coup, Mark Langley, a man who thinks thought leadership is a personality, flips open the packet with all the ceremony of a Sunday sermon. He's halfway into his usual monotone when he lands on the section labeled Client Churn and Movement. Halfway down the page, in a bold, unforgiving font, reads Sablecom New Strategic Partner, Omnira Partner Status, Fully Transitioned. Contract Value, $100 million. Effective, immediate. There's a beat of silence so thick you could spoon it. Then the VP, Mr. Neon Billboard himself, goes completely still. His face drains of color like someone pulled the plug on his circulatory system. You can almost hear his internal monologue crashing into itself like a 3-car pileup. Omnira who? And how? He flips pages. He fumbles. This must be a misprint, he says to no one in particular. It isn't. Kira, the only one in the room who's already read my email, doesn't say a word. She just leans back in her chair, crosses her legs, and watches the panic bloom. Someone whispers near the end of the table. Isn't that? Another voice, confused. Marissa's thing? Then nothing. Just the sound of reputations imploding in slow motion. Across the street, 19th floor, Argent building. I'm holding a black Montblanc pen, a gift from Erin that morning. The Sablecom CEO is across from me, one eyebrow raised like he knows he's witnessing the kind of moment people pretend to be humble about but secretly replay in their heads forever. Shall we? He asks. I sign. $100 million. 60-day rollout. Full strategic ownership. The second my pen lifts from the paper, the air changes. Not dramatically, not like a parade. But subtly, like the weather just shifted in my favor and everyone else is still in short sleeves. We shake hands. I stand, smooth the front of my jacket, and walk to the floor-ceiling window. Down below, Nexera's HQ buzzes like a kicked anthill. Inside those walls, I know what's happening. Finger pointing, excuses, rapid-fire emails to legal and PR. Somewhere, VP is already drafting a statement that begins within today's evolving market, and I don't feel giddy. I don't feel smug. I feel still. Because this wasn't revenge. Not really. It was justice. Accrued like interest, painful, precise, and delivered at the exact moment it would land the hardest. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't twist the knife. I just showed them what they left on the table, and took it. For a moment, I think about all the times I was told to stay in my lane, let leadership handle it, be a team player. The meetings where I had to smile while someone else presented my work with the confidence of a toddler in a superhero cape. The promotions I watched go to charm instead of competence. The applause they gave a campaign that lost a legacy client. I take a sip of water and glance down at the signed contract, embossed with both our logos, Omnira and Sable.com. Side by side, they wanted fireworks. I gave them a funeral. Quiet, precise, and final. The late afternoon sun turns the city glass gold. Everything's soft and sharp at the same time, like a dream that knows exactly what it's doing. I'm sitting in the window seat of Suite 2C, legs crossed, mug in hand. The Omnira Partners logo gleams behind me in clean matte lettering. No fanfare, no tagline, just presence. The office is quiet, not empty, just quiet in the way I like. My developer is in the back room tuning something I don't need to understand. A plant I forgot to water 3 days ago leans toward the window like it knows we made it. Across the street, Nexera Tech's lobby bustles like always, interns juggling overpriced coffee, someone from finance on a Bluetooth meltdown, the janitor I used to chat with wiping smudges off the glass like he's erasing someone else's chaos. Then I see him. VP, Mr. Disruption. Walking down the sidewalk, phone in hand, pace stiff and clipped like someone who just came from a board meeting that ended in bloodletting. He stops briefly to adjust his collar. Doesn't look up. Doesn't know he's being watched. He passes right under me. Doesn't see the logo. Doesn't see the woman he tried to erase sitting just above his eyeline, sipping black coffee and owning everything he couldn't imagine. I don't wave. I don't smile. I just watch him disappear around the corner, back into the building where ghosts like me aren't supposed to have endings like this. My laptop pings. New email. From Aaron McCraw. Subject, worth every penny. Body just had the follow-up with procurement. You didn't just deliver, you rebuilt the entire model. Our CFO is still recovering from the implementation timeline. You're exactly where you should be. I read it twice, not because I need the validation. Because I earned it. The mug in my hand reads, build quietly. Let the view talk. I take another sip. The inbox fills slowly with contract approvals, rollout timelines, early-stage onboarding requests. The machine is humming now. Omnira isn't a shell anymore. It's an organism. Breathing. Growing. And me? I'm the still point in the turning world. I think back to that meeting, the one where they called my strategy not innovative enough. $50,000. That's all I asked for. A drop in the bucket. A patch on a leaking dam. They said no. Now they're bleeding clients trying to reverse engineer relevance. And somewhere inside that mirrored box across the street, someone is asking, how the hell did we miss her? Let them wonder. Let them hold town halls and task forces and throw budget at branded disasters. I don't need their applause. I have the view. And they'll need binoculars to keep up. They wouldn't spend $50,000 to keep me. Now they'll spend $100 million to compete with me. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.